Where we left off last time, but about 1989, and you were transitioning from
EDS to
EDS
pros.
to Pro. Why don't you give us just a recap of the final things at EDS and then how you came to go to Perot?
Okay, well, we had talked about through 1999. We had talked about the Ross Perot going to the board meeting in 1999. No, we're talking
We're
about
going 89.
okay.
Go back. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I
Yeah.
got to get straight on where I'm at. So
Yeah.
89, I've come back from Korea. I'm in charge of technology for Asia Pacific and South America. And then we get asked to go to run the data center in Washington, D.C. We put the house up for sale. Mom wasn't happy about going up there. We went up there. We probably stayed 6 weeks or so, started taking over the job. And I got a call from Pro Systems that says, you interested in coming and join Pro Systems? And talked to Mom about it. And of course, that meant we'd be back in Dallas. And I resigned from EDS and came back to Dallas and went to work for Pro at Pro Systems.
Now, Perot used to own EDS, right?
In 1984, GM bought Perot Systems,
Right.
or bought EDS.
Right.
And Mr. Perot was unhappy with the board of directors at GM. He thought they should do a lot more for the workers, should be participating a lot more with the workforce, etc. And he would criticize them at board meetings. And they finally come up with an arrangement. They would give him X amount of money if he would leave the GM board and be divorced from EDS. And at that time, there was a requirement that he couldn't start another service company for 3 years. And I'm not sure, I think it was in 85 when this came about.
Right.
And so Mr. Pro left EDS and went silent. 3 years to the day, he took 7 mid-level managers from EDS and started Perot Systems.
Right. And do you know when he started Perot Systems?
It was in 88. It was
88.
It was the day from the day he said he could not start it. That day he started a service company.
And so you got a call in 89.
I got a call in 89.
So how big was it when you moved over there? Do you remember?
Not very many people, maybe 100, 200, not a lot of people. And I got called over there again to run data centers. The people I'd worked with at EDS are the ones that called me and said, come on over. And so I went to Pro Systems, and we were initially housed in a building. It's multi-stored building, maybe 10, 12 stories on Spring Valley in the tollway.
And what year? I mean, in 89. So, but when in 89?
I think it was in the mid to latter part of 89. I'm not 100% sure of the dates. And so we were up there trying to figure out, they were working on contracts for a couple insurance companies, one in Dallas, one in Chicago. They may have been the same company, but they had locations in Dallas and Chicago. And trying to figure out where we're going to build a data center or acquire a data center. And again, I'm not 100% sure of all the details that were going on at that specific time. I just know we were working with a guy who had been in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania, on cost models and things that we could do to get these 2 insurance companies. And we got the business.
And so your job was, again, to move the data centers from where they were to Richardson?
To Richardson. And we took several of the people that were running the data center in Dallas. We migrated them from the insurance company to Perot Systems. So they became Perot Systems employees. And we brought some more people over from EDS that wanted to come, or we asked them to come.
Right.
And we set up and got to work there, and we're running the data center. And we're in 90, late 90 maybe, and we get another opportunity for a healthcare company. I believe the company was AMI, and they were somehow associated with Tenet, which is a big.
Before you get to that one, I have in my notes here that this insurance company, you were moving stuff from Chicago and from Dallas
Right.
to Richardson.
To Richardson, right, exactly.
And so were you running back and forth between these places?
I made a couple of trips to Chicago. We're in Dallas, so that wasn't running back and forth. I made a couple of trips to Chicago, make sure we got all our I's dotted, T's crossed. It went. I had moved a lot of data centers. Some of the people that came over from EDS had moved a lot of data centers. So this was not something we didn't know how to do.
So how long did it take?
Getting all the workloads and setting up the data centers probably took us 6 months, 8 months to get everybody moved in there. So that's why I say we're in 1990, end of 1990. And we look at this contract with AMI, which is in Los Angeles.
Right.
And again, they're associated with Tenet, which is a company that runs a bunch of hospitals. I go out to Los Angeles. I want to see what we're getting into. Yeah. And fortunately, I was able to sit down with one of the financial people from AMI. And he had all the financial documents.
Right.
So I asked him to sit and walk through all the financial documents. How many properties were leased? What was the ability to get out of leases? Because they had buildings down there and other equipment that they had committed to pay for.
Right.
And so we went through the whole laundry list of things. And mentally and physically, I've talked to him about we can do away with this. So I came up with what I thought would be a price where Perot Systems could make money off the contract.
Right.
And one of the founders was in charge of healthcare. And the gentleman who had hired me, brought me over, was also in charge of the data centers.
Right.
So I'd written them on a memorandum telling them, based on what I've looked at and the financials that I walked through with this individual, was one of the financial people for AMI, this is the range of where I think we ought to be costing this thing at if we want to make any money. And I copied the president of Perot Systems. And we moved it up to Richardson, and now we're running the insurance companies and AMI
right.
in the data center. And I get a visit from the president of Perot Systems, who said, we got an issue. Basically said, I have an issue. And I said, well, what's the issue? He said, we undersold this contract, we're losing money. And I said, wait a second, let me show you the document that I provided to you and others. So I pulled the copy of the document out, and the conversation was sort of over. I think the range what they sold the contract at was around 18, 19 million.
Right.
And it had to be 20 million or 20 and a half million in order for us to make money.
Right.
We probably were breaking even.
Right.
But we weren't making any money.
Right.
Might have been losing a little bit of money.
So you gave him another copy of the contract, and he disappeared, or your memo.
Yeah, and he said, well, we have issues in other locations. I'll need to go address those. But the issue of my having done a boo-boo was over, because
Did you ever hear from him again?
Oh, I stated, this is 1990, 91, into 91, into 90, 91, some period in there, maybe in mid 91. And yeah, so I stayed there for another 8 years. Anyway, so we're running the three companies, and we get an opportunity to enter into a contract with Republic Bank, which was soon to become Bank of America.
Well, before you get there, I have some notes about implementing your Korean billing system.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we had to do. So we got a new data center, we got a new company. How do you bill?
This was
And
for this one that we were in LA that we were talking about.
right, well, yeah, we got the insurance company, so you have to figure out how you recover your cost for your equipment, your hardware, and your personnel. I mean,
Right.
we have to make money. Then in the account, because they had for the healthcare company, we're actually writing the code for the healthcare company, managing their applications.
Right.
And so the billing system that we put together in Korea, I sat down with, again, the founders were mid-managers. My assumption was they had helped build billing systems and et cetera at EDS. And to my surprise, they didn't. And so I introduced my system where we measure service units that the computer
Right.
calculates and tells you and figure out the cost and divide it. 3/4 of our cost is going to be recovered from CPU usage, and quarter of the cost is going to be for storage. And you can measure all of that. I mean, it's all
Right.
calculable. It's not like you're making up a number. And so that system went into Perot system, and it stayed there, to my knowledge, the whole time that Perot Systems was running mainframes with mainframe storage.
Seems like something that you ought to be compensated above and beyond for something like that.
They took care of me. I did okay.
All right. All right. So, all right, now Republic Bank.
So they were going to build a data center in Plano. And some of the guys who had come over from EDS had built data centers, had been part of, not physically, but working with contractors, and knew the requirements for power and other things. We always wanted redundant power.
Call from wireless caller.
Hello?